Never mind.
He's fine. If it was echoing, we would have heard it already.
Right. Sometimes we get feedback. If you have Facebook up as well as this, sometimes you get feedback.
For a lag. But I'm sure he's probably connected hardware. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Hello,
Hello,
everybody.
y'all. We have Will Savard with Savard Speakers here with us tonight. Give us some education.
I hope to learn something from y'all.
Oh man, that's really sad. That's tough, man. It's tough to learn from us.
I don't know. You're the man with the experience. As many shows as you've done, I'm sure you've seen the right and wrong so far.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was thinking the other day, I wanted to, I wish I'd count how many shows we've done. We were over 100 some time ago, so I bet we're at 150. Bet we're at 150 shows in like 3 years. The first year I almost don't count because I only had a show every so often.
That's the way it's been for me a little bit up here, but I think I would like to say COVID has had a huge factor in all that, Once all this is over with, I just want to create videos and FPMs.
Yeah. Since we're outside, I use that outside clause sometimes, like you can have a lot of people because you're outside. That mixed with a little bit, I just wasn't sure how serious this was or if it was, and I still don't know, honestly. We'll see if the election knocks it all out, then we'll know. And that's my prediction. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, so Will, how much do you know? How old were you when your dad started Savard? I mean, do you remember, was that a thing in your life when you were young?
Yeah. So he stopped. So Savard Speakers closed initially in 95. So I was about 5 or 6 years old. I do remember being young enough to run through a long hallway. I just remember generally people's faces. I remember people saying stuff. I remember awkward things like a large typewriter, the big mechanical one.
Yeah.
I mean, and then walking back into a huge sound room where speakers bigger than you. And I remember probably the most vivid thing I remember is running back there, and my dad is standing in front of one of these precisions or larger style speakers. And it is blaring, and he's just sitting there with his ear right in front of the tweeter and listening to each individual component, just standing in front of it. And I'm, like that, like a kid, and I just like turn and run out. And really, I don't really remember much other than that than just a bunch of boxes. Back in the day, a lot of that foam packaging, the crack foam where you crack the bag and it expands around the product.
Yeah.
Which I really like, but that is very expensive stuff nowadays.
Yeah, no doubt.
I've looked into it, and that is probably the most unique thing that I remember. And then over the years, I just did repair on his. I did a lot of repair on his cabinets and swap outs. I mean, it started out as speaker swap outs and then probably making things worse than better. But you know how it is. You look back at what you've been doing, you realize that you've been doing it bad or wrong for the most part of your career or life, and then it takes that to get to the right place. But no, I did that, and it just slowly evolved into what it is today.
Yeah, well, that's cool. So now what? I've seen most all the speakers, as a matter of fact. But what line do y'all have right now? Like subwoofers and 5 1/4, 6 1/2. I've seen. What all do you have now? Everything?
Yeah, well, we have everything from 6 1/2 to 18s. Basically, from the Pro line, we have everything 6 1/2 to 12. Dabbled with the 15s a little bit. It's just right now the 6 1/2 to 12s move more. So our interest follows the demand. And then for the wrap series, 6 1/2 to 15. And then which we'll be having some changes coming out with the wrap soon, probably upgrading the voice coil a little bit more just to have a little bit more endurance for the market today and what people expect. Not trying to get sued for any type of power ratings.
Right.
So they So then we have the high Q 6.5 to 15s. We actually have the 18 will be debuting in February, March, around that time. So in just a few short months, we'll have the 18s available. And the high Qs have been a real big hit. And I know, I'm sure y'all have seen the high Qs in some of the shows, things like that. Very durable product when used properly. It sounds very, very good. And just we're excited about the way things are going. We have a lot of new things coming down the road that haven't even been mentioned or posted about yet.
I tell you, man, I like an 18. I always have. And the last 2 builds I did for myself, I used 15s. And I'm just done with them. To me, it's 18 or nothing. Right?
I can't say that because I personally like the 15s.
You like the way the 15s sound better than the 18s?
As a competitor, yes.
Well, I just mean musically, an 18 just sounds great. 12s kind of mimic that. The 15s just never really been my favorite. Don't know why. They just sound different. An 18's just got a sound of an 18, and you just love it.
That's it. I mean, the 18, I think about the cone area and what's going on there mechanically. You have a lot of weight in the cone. You're going to get a nice, slow, warm bass, you know.
Right.
A lot of weight. It's going to be efficient. It's going to be, you're going to get the SPL numbers there. So, and we're obviously speaking very generally. There's many 18s out there. So
right.
About a general assumption, but that's why we're coming out with it. You know, the 18s offer that specific sound and a different characteristic, especially with the SPL. A lot of people out there like to have big builds with 2-3 woofers. That's where the 18s come in.
Yeah, I'd like to have about 20 of them in my pickup.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you know somebody who could build that for you, so I'm sure y'all can.
Right. I think we can make it happen.
I'm going to rebuild mine next year, but I'm going to stick with 15s. So,
hey, whatever gets the job done. Whenever I have my mind made up about what I'm going to do next, I see something else done, or it makes me rethink it. With the woofers, I just passed on. You know, it's like, nah, I'm not going to do 12s and go to 15s. That seems to be where it's at. And then you hear about some dude with 12s who just did something crazy, hair tricks, whatever you're into, he just achieved it. So I think the real trick, and we've seen a lot of people do a lot of different things, and I think really and someone said it today, 2 10s and a optimum box, they can make it sound like 4 10s, you know. So I always find whatever you decide to do, make sure that you have your cone area, your surface area to airspace properly, the ratio proper, and then also your port, and then figure out how you can get that port to load properly. And
enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this, and anything that I asked you that you don't want to answer, just say it, right? No problem. So you just referenced cone area to box volume, pretty much. Did you or did you not? Yeah. So is that the way you like to tune the enclosures, that ratio, as opposed to box volume to port volume type thing?
It all goes into they're all variables of a large equation, you know, a system equation. Whenever I'm calculating volume, so port, to me, I kind of in my head start with a rough ratio of subwoofer to volume, and there's the variables I look at are surface area, weight, moving mass, and then what volume that's going to create. If you hit the more surface area you have, typically the larger the enclosure needs to be, whether you're doing some type of T-line or even just a very regular vented bandpass, whatever it is. The heavier the moving mass, the smaller the enclosure typically. You think about it, if you put a Pro 15 into a 3 cubic foot enclosure, you're probably going to get some solid 60 hertz, 70 hertz and up, you know. And then if you try to tune it shallow, you're going to hear that woofer sounding like it's starting for more airspace, you know. But a subwoofer in today's world, like a Q or anything like a Sundown, anything like that, and in 3 cubic feet, you're going to notice a very different response for the most part. I'm generally speaking, against general PA 15s. That weight on that cone is going to allow the suspension to react differently with that amount of airspace that you have. So, it's you're moving a lot of weight, so it's going to move slow, and it's going to have that force is going to, the weight of that force is going to keep pushing, and so the compliance is going to be met at a much less volume whenever you're dealing with a heavy cone. So that's one thing that I look at whenever people ask me how is this going to sound. Usually I'll ask, what's the net airspace you're dealing with? What size woofer? And then I'll go online and just look what the advertised MMS is of a woofer. So that will also, the MMS will help me understand what kind of sound you're going to get. Is it going to be a muggy bass? Is it going to be a snappy bass? Things like that. And that's one reason why we have the high Q in the wrap line and the pro line. Each woofer has a different moving mass, obviously different parameters, but ultimately lighter cones as you go down, the power handling decreases as well. But with lighter cones, larger enclosures, you get a more efficient system. So it all ties in. Again, I don't want to get caught up in the weeds of bringing up too many things and lose the initial concept of the first question. Right. But yes. Then from there, you usually will go with determining your port for how much power you're going to be pushing to it, the loading effect you're going to get. I generally find that larger ports are more efficient to an extent, almost like acting like a horn loaded enclosure. So, and then of course, positioning within the environment or vehicle.
I've been searching for some knowledge, especially in the last few years, a way to explain to people, and other than I just built it this way and it works, or I built it this way and it didn't. But so when in a ported enclosure, right, when that speaker sucks into the box, right, and it pressurizes inside and it puts the air outside. So, and then when the speaker releases, it creates another wave out the front. And so the difference, it seems to me, when a speaker or when a car, some just are really loud compared to others, is when those two waves, the one coming out of the port and the one coming out of and the next one coming off the front of the speaker line up, it seems to intensify, because you got more amplitude with the same mechanics. Did I explain that halfway to where you could understand it?
Are you saying that the air is coming out of the port at the same time that the woofer is pushing?
Yeah, when the speaker pushes out and it creates that wave in the front, the wave coming from the port matches that one.
Are you saying like a wall where the woofer and the port are matching?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same. There's always different types. There's different concepts with that. Have I built enough enclosures to test that exact thing? I don't know. And somebody who is around large builds to determine that type of thing may know better. Somebody who does that. Yeah, someone like Drew. A lot of my experience is more with the sound quality aspect. You want to for home audio, pro audio, commercial environments, a lot of times you don't want the port coming out the front. You want that ported out the rear so that it loads on the environment behind it. So like if it like a home audio system, you put that cabinet up against the wall, you'll notice an amplification if it's rear ported. So that's free bass right there. Mm-hmm. For large builds, that is something that would be that is something that you could have cancellation if you have things matching up wrong. Unfortunately, I don't know enough to say that off the top of my head. And whenever you get into large builds, and even dealing with Keith Payne, and whenever you're dealing with large builds, sometimes they say you just build the box and you move the wall and you adjust the port, because sometimes it is very hard to predict your environment, the tuning of the resonant frequency of your vehicle. So I've talked to people who've done every calculation in the world, and they said basically once they got down to it, they just started cutting stuff and extending stuff until they found what worked best on the meter for the application that they're trying to achieve. So I think being really smart and using calculation will get you so far. probably experience would be a very big part of that, of how many builds have you seen and what have you done that works right and wrong, and then the vehicle that you're working with. So I have a feeling knowledge and experience, just as usual, plays a big part in that. And so I can tell you there's definitely a lot of room for error. So you better be ready to make some adjustments, and we'll be doing that with the excursion soon. So
yeah,
test, and more test. That's all I tell everybody is test, and more test. I mean, I do have the world's lightest nitro, but I worked my butt off to get that. Drew's a good friend, and I like poking that a little bit there. But
yeah, his brother's got a nitro as well, right?
Well, it's Drew's old nitro.
Okay. Well, he's coming after you. He did a 60 the other day. He's what, 2 decimals behind you?
3.
Yeah.
Well, that was before I changed everything. I was a 63.7 before I changed it all. So I don't know. We'll see what it's going to do this weekend.
Right.
And what's your setup? What are you working with?
I have 415s on 47500s, all def bounce.
Mm-hmm.
So, Will, the reason I asked is some people calculate port area based on cone area, right?
Oh, I agree with that. Yes. So, and some people calculate port area based on airspace as well. So, but generally, you need to make sure that port is not starving your system, or the opposite, which is allowing or not allowing enough suspension in the system. So it's the port may be too big or not enough back pressure. So there definitely is a balance there to keep the cone stable versus starving it. So and where is that balance? It's very tough. You know, I've seen a lot of people do things that I thought would be wrong, and then it ends up yielding a very good result, maybe because of the environment of the cab. So like I said, it's tough to say. And you know, it's one thing that I see plays a big factor is also placement of the woofers, where you have rows of woofers and then you have the outside woofers being close to a wall. So it's causing an increase of pressure on the outside of the cone. And then that cone moves in non-linear. And then during high power, you'll notice loss or fatigue within the system. You know, so that also goes into playing earlier whenever I said less woofers in an optimum environment may yield the same results as many woofers as you can fit in a less than optimum environment. So 415s is a very common setup, and I agree that I think that is a good number of woofers for surface area, you know, where you can make it fit well, keep it all on a flat wall, things aren't angling all kinds of different crazy directions.
Well, I have one of them, you know, them weird enclosures that, you know, it's a flat wall and it shouldn't have the bandwidth that it does, but it actually has got pretty decent bandwidth. I can play from, we'll just say realistically, 20 to 57 with no problem. And in a flat wall, that's, you know, I'm sure both of you guys understand that. That's pretty well unheard of.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it's just one of them weird things. It works. I mean, granted, I'm not going to sit there and demo all day at 20 or 57, but you know, I can play it, no problem.
Yeah. Well, we're excited about what's coming up. We're going to be getting more involved in the competitions, and this is as expected. We have our high Q line out. It's doing well. We consider our high Q and the wrap line to be part of our SQL line. So, you know, so like sound quality loud, SPL, sound quality and SPL. It has the mechanical abilities to have higher excursion, but it's a light enough moving mass to where it'll keep a nice transient response. But later on down the road, we'll be coming out with a specific SQ line. And then our next line that we're going to be introducing is going to be the initial line of our higher end SPL line. And that's going to be the host series. And so we're excited about that coming out.
That's awesome. Let's try to pull something up to show you.
Sorry, all the comments over here on the side.
We had, well, you were there. You saw that colorful box.
Yeah, Mr. Eric.
Yeah, man, I really like that. That was a cool box.
Yeah, I like that one. The like I said, I posted that I like it just because it's a family build. His
Yeah.
girlfriend or wife, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the dynamic, but he built it. She painted it. He clear
Right.
coated it.
Right.
And it's her car.
I used it on a graphic that I posted the result. Yeah, I was trying to pull up so I could show everybody, but Corel is really slow right now, so guess I need a new, faster computer.
And
So
Josh,
on that whole,
sorry. I said Josh is the man in here. Everybody go look him up. He's the blah, blah. He's the new guy that created the voice coil temperatures for multiple subs.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that is awesome.
So I actually have a nice prototype out of my car that I'm going to be pounding the shit out of this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll
So
see.
this weekend is the Midwest SPL Finals.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Will, one thing I've been trying to figure out is this whole port thing. That's why I keep coming back to it. Okay. What do you think the percentage of port to cone is? Like there's for volume, for those guys that like to do it off volume, they say 16 inches per square foot, right?
Right.
Is there anything for cone area to port that I don't know of it if it is, and that's the reason I'm asking. I don't know.
Well, typically you have whenever you go to a larger woofer, so does your volume increase, and then so everything kind of works in proportion to each other. So the 12-inch subwoofer, 2 cubic feet net. Let's just say that a 15, you're looking at 3.5 cubic feet net. And then so if you're using that volume calculator, it's going to, and I'm very rough numbers. Some people use 20. Some people believe in the hugest port that's very long, to give you that horn loading effect. So, or something, depending if your enclosure is very large, then your port's going to be shallow. So even if it is huge, but like a lot of larger builds, they have a large shallow port for the most part. But as far as the dynamic between the port and surface area, I typically balance between the volume. So I can't speak. I don't really think in the terms of the surface area of the woofer. I use the recommended volume, and then from there the power application, and kind of use programs and start to go from there, and then trial and error. So but again, I mainly work with my woofers now, so I know generally what my approach is. I'm not swapping woofers and trying all kinds of and learning different equations that work for a general mass. So that's definitely not the best answer that you could get for that type of topic.
Well, I have a question for you when it comes to power rating on your subs. Are your guys' power rating, I want to say, accurate, or do you guys lower your power rating because you don't want someone to overpower your subwoofer?
So I always say in our industry, what kills our revenue or margin is returns and warranties, and then time, because we don't we don't scrap our parts. We spend too much money on the motors, everything like that. If you return something, we rebuild it in-house in Louisiana. So and then we ship it back out to you, or whatever the case is. Or if it is an issue to us, then we'll find the issue, fix it, resolve it, and then rebuild it while we send you a new woofer altogether. So it depends on the scenario. But what was the initial question?
The power rating. If you had true power rating, or if you guys actually lowered it.
No, we build it. Our model is to, one, we want to make sure that the user has an intended experience or better. And so return is never a part of that experience. You want to buy something that's going to last. And so I would say that our products are very conservatively rated. We have people who push on our high Qs. They're rated for 1500 watts RMS for the 10 and up. We have people who put them on 2000, 6000s, RMS amplifiers. I'm not there though with box rise or anything or whatever they're dealing with, the way their crossovers are set. I don't know what they're clamping at, what frequencies and things like that. So I say that we we open and recommend ratings and then adjust them based on general public feedback and experience. And there is no really equation. I would almost have to say if there is an equation, it would be whatever maybe whatever constant tone blows the coil, then cut it in half. I have no idea. I would say that people put 2,000 watts on the high Q 2500, and it gets warm, but they may be a smarter user. So I do not. It's tough to say about that.
Right. Yeah, we know definitely that what we do out here. I don't think anybody buys a woofer with an expectation of a warranty. Would you say that's the case, or do they expect a warranty?
Yeah. Oh, are you talking to Jimmy or me?
To you, Will.
Oh man, there's a lot of different people out there, a lot of different expectations. I can tell you right now, the high Q8 in 6.5 are probably one of our 2 top selling products, and they are widely used, way over rating. And and it's but if there is a blow, we don't leave anybody hanging. We always try to communicate. We work with them. We will distribute rebuild kits. We will build in-house. If it is a blown coil, typically that's not a manufacturer defect. That is something that is abusive use. Most of the time, it's oftentimes I'll see improper impedances being used, or there's a gain somewhere that's set too high, even though the amp doesn't look to be set too high. So because just as bad as turning that the head unit up, to 10 out of 10 out of 10. So there's a lot of variables. We have a lot of communication with our customers to not only help resolve the product damage, but also to learn and gain knowledge, not only from us to them, but from them to us, so that we can learn how to better resolve that in the future. So if you look at our sales brochure, our paperwork, there's a lot of disclosures. Here's the rating. Be aware of other companies' ratings. When building an enclosure, be aware that that's going to play a factor into the ability to be able to handle the power. So everything that we use, every answer that we can give, or every recommendation, comes with a general anticipated, or just a general understanding that this is in this environment or being used in this way. So really, it's the transfer of knowledge and terminology is really the hardest part of the game. Yes.
Yeah, I believe you, because we're just cooking. we're turning them into heating elements.
So that's why we're coming out with the next series. The high Qs are a great line for that SPL SQ balance. But there's a lot of people out there that are wanting to go to shows with our products, and they're only wanting to run 2 woofers, but they're wanting to push 10 grand, 10,000 watts through it. They're wanting to hit some crazy numbers with something extreme. They don't care so much about the daily listening or whatever the case is, or they like that type of sound out of an SPL woofer, So that's why I said the HO series, which stands for high output, which is going to be coming out next. That's going to feature basically a similar motor to the high Q, but just with a longer stroke, improved heat dissipation. And then after that, we'll be down the line coming out with the show series, which is a super high output, which will be a 4-inch voice coil, able to handle rated at maybe 3,000 watts RMS. But of course, usually when you get into those woofers, you can push them as hard as you want, as long as the power is clean for the most part.
I'd watch saying
or it could be burnt. It's something short.
Because I'd watch saying that, like me, I'll take that literally. I'm feeding my subwoofers right now. I would say just realistically double the rated power.
And I have no problem with that. And people ask all the time. And our simple response is keep it clean. Keep it clean and listen to your ear. If you hear something funky, watch out. Also, when you get to a show, sometimes you realize you're not as loud as you thought you were. So it's easy to turn that knob up a couple clicks past what you're used to.
You got to a little bit to be in the lanes, though. Sometimes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why a clippy burp is fine with me, But you can't. It's tough to run that clip for extended periods of time daily listening. If you're clipping during daily listening, unless you have the ear and you're testing out your system, then you'll need a speaker to match that environment and that type of abusive user.
Well, I mean, I would like to
Clicking demos hurt the pocketbook, right?
right.
Jimmy?
I'd like to see a lot of our serious competitors now have, got the tools that they need to set their stuff up. Well,
That's a very important part.
like a O-scope or a DD1 or just a multimeter, that a lot of people use as well.
So one thing, and before I go forward, I do want to say that I believe in when I build my own systems, I like to have double rated amplifier, because generally to get an extra 3 dB, you double the power. That's one way to think about it. And 3 dB, and when you're listening to a music, that could be the initial hit of a bass note. That could be the dynamic of a song, especially if you're talking about a higher quality recording. So having that headroom is very important to send clean power to the driver. But I'd rather too much clean power than to have rated clean power and send dirty power. So I'd rather have an amplifier double the rated at half the gain, if you want to put it in simple terms like that, very simply. But I can tell you that, in the future, we are looking at and wanting to get into, that's one second. We are looking at and wanting to get into the amplifier side more. But of course, I want to finish developing our driver line first. And one thing that I would like to see in an amplifier would be standard, just a clipping indicator of some sort. So rather how accurate, it's tough to say. There's a lot of variance into what's standard for that type of thing. But I would like to see something that is just some kind of flash, so that somebody who's not used to the ear or whatever the case is, they can see something visually that'll tell them, hey, something's not right.
A lot of the companies have actually come up with them, and I'd say half of them are pretty accurate when it comes to that. Like my company that I love, obviously, they not only do they have that, but they also have the temperature of the amplifier and the voltage of the amplifier all in a factory knob.
And what company?
Def Bounce.
Def Bounce, okay.
Yes. And I mean, I'd like to say we were the first to have it, Salt, yes. The new Sundowns have them, but we were first.
So I'm gonna put this up. This is the box I was telling you we were talking about earlier. Look at that. That's cool. That box right there.
What's
that? 310s up there? Do you remember? 3/8.
That's our high Q8.
8s. Yeah. Yeah, that was a really cool box.
Absolutely. I had somebody running my lanes this weekend with 4/8s, I believe.
Yeah. Bud Gardner.
Yes, sir.
His son Brady.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, we're excited. We have a lot of good things coming out. And probably, I mean, we were talking about ratings. We have very, very little returns, a very low quantity of returns. And so we're very happy about that. I can say that. I think that our general user base is also, I think, pretty well educated, the people that we've attracted so far. So I think we're very lucky with that. We have a pretty good knowledge base. We have a Facebook group online, not our business page, but a separate Facebook page that it's a very open community. Everybody I find is willing to help each other. I'm surprised the amount of feedback and input that they give to each other. For the most part, it's accurate, and then they communicate things. So it's a very cool community to see it grow. And so that's one of the things I look forward to the most is just seeing the wealth of information there, just as a lot of other pages. And I'm part of many pages in Facebook. So that's probably one of the most exciting things to me.
Is there a particular region that y'all are stronger in than anywhere else? And the reason I ask is because, like this weekend, I saw it in Louisiana. I saw it. I think I saw it in Florida as well. And then Jimmy had it up in Springfield. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Bud just actually commented on there right now. He's got
and down in Tampa.
4 high Q 8s in a fourth order.
Yeah. So, any region particularly, I'm actually surprised about how widespread our sales are. We sell from East Coast to West Coast. And I don't know if I can say we've sold in every state, but it's a very broad.
Yeah.
It's a very broad spread that we have. I would say that, man, I can say that we have a lot of people hitting us up from, of course, the Baton Rouge. I mean, Baton Rouge and surrounding areas. That's where we are.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know. I would have to say probably Southern Louisiana. It would have to be our strongest area generally.
Yeah.
And I know back in the day, my dad, they were very strong in the southeast portion of the United States. So, I mean, it would only make sense that the roots would stay close to that as initially, for the easiest.
And the reality, and I don't really remember this, but I've heard others talk, that area where you are, Mississippi, maybe East Texas, I mean, that was like car audio central. I forget who said this the other day. Maybe it was Kip last week said it. But I had no idea that we were right in the heat of the biggest car audio ever back in the 90s in that area. That's where we all competed. I just didn't realize that was the biggest there. I didn't realize that we were there and it was nowhere else, because we're in it. But so that's pretty cool.
I've heard stories and I've heard all the craziness. I've seen the builds, a lot of money, clean builds that I've seen. I saw Jimmy, you shaking your head, so it sounded like what Bill must have said wasn't fact in your opinion.
Well, he's up north, right?
Yeah,
and he wasn't. So Kansas City is not in that really southern, if you will, region that was just huge in the early 90s and late 80s, I think. Kind of where I think it, based on what Kip said, I think that's kind of where it kicked off and where it just exploded out of.
Yeah, I would maybe a little bit. I would agree with that. I mean, it came from everywhere. Obviously, everybody has their own little communities or whatever. But yeah, it was real popular back here in the early 90s.
Ralph's, with USAC, him and Jimmy Ham right there in Richland, but Ralph from Nacogdoches, how you say that?
Nacogdoches.
So Louisiana, Mississippi is where USAC created. What Iasca's always been Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long Steve has been in Tennessee, if he was there forever, so he would be almost kind of north, even though he's in, Nashville. It's about the middle of the country, but
middle somewhere.
Just saying, a lot of the stuff that really was built come from our area.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely.
Because back then, Sundown and all those guys, Kicker was there. They're in Oklahoma, but I don't think Sundown existed. Scar is new within the last 4 or 5 years, I think, right?
I'm guessing I don't know this exactly, but I think Sundown has been like 11, 12 years. So.
Yeah. Well, okay. That stands to reason. Yeah. So Will, how do they get you speakers? Do you guys, y'all stop doing dealers, right? You're selling direct?
Yeah, so we decided to go direct to cut out, and that's something that we'll adjust in the future. There's too many. We have a lot of people who are interested in using our products and then wanting to be able to have some type of access. And we want to be able to provide that to them. The people who do fight hard to push our stuff, we want to be able to help them out because they're definitely helping us out and much appreciated. We have a lot of people too, and so yes, dealers in the future. And especially as our volume increases, I'll be able to fight to get costs down so that it's not all placed on the end consumer. I want to always try to keep it reasonably affordable relative to the product, so I'm always going to try to fight for that. In the end, that's the game we all want. We all love audio, and I want to be able to make sure it's accessible. And I'm always going to try to do some flash sales, things like that. I even want to start a program for people who know people who are very passionate or generally good people with the right mind that maybe can't afford it, maybe have some type of program to put some product in their hands to get a starter, to get them involved in something that creates thinking and keep their mind busy instead of in other things. Because I find that even no matter who you meet in car audio, I find that generally it's a really good group of people, good community for the most part, and very smart people as well. So, I mean, it comes across as like bass. It's it's a loud thing. It's crazy. These builds are crazy, but the people behind them are very educated, at least in this sense of what they do in an engineering almost format. But also we have a very good group of supporters, group of supporters, and some people who want to get into competition with our stuff. And then along with them, I would like to be able to offer some incentive program and get into some type of if you have the passion, if you have the time and you get out there, I want to be able to support you with it. If you're pushing my product, I want to make sure that I'm helping elevate you. It's a small price. I wouldn't say small, depending on what you're getting into, but I would say it's definitely something that I would like to explore and have a conversation about how we can help each other. And I can't do it on a case-by-case basis. I'm going to figure out something to design that's a system that's going to be self-managing. And that's why I'm thinking something along like a credits-based system, small to where it helps get your feet off the ground. But when you start getting into it, you start going to a lot of shows with the passion and time, you'll get that return. And again, very generally speaking, it could be 1 year, it could be 3 years from now. Right now, we're really reinvesting so much into growing our line as fast as we're getting it out. We're trying to get it in. So the dealers is down the road, the programs that's down the road. I wish I could give some more information about it, but I'm very cautious to say something that's going to change. So mention anything that's going to change. So I want to, give that courtesy.
Well, how long have you guys been back out? Sort of thing. How long have you been working on it?
Well, about 7 years ago, I guess 8 years ago, we started manufacturing, and we started getting some product in and just testing the waters and seeing what people generally wanted based on what they said they wanted versus what actually happened versus what we found wasn't mentioned and then sold. Really, I would say maybe about 5 years ago, Luke got on board, and we started pushing a lot of what we had and really starting to analyze the market and make some changes. Probably one of the biggest things that I was against, I learned from Bill Savard, and so he's an efficient guy. It's like you need cone area. Each driver has its purpose. You need something to move air on 15 watts. That's all you need, and then you have your mid-range and you have your highs. So what I'm getting at is I wasn't a big fan of the 6.5s and the 8s, like that space you needed. That wasn't an efficient driver. But now I have 2 6.5s in my truck and I love it. I've really just kind of opened up that the application is different. A lot of our sales are guys with pickup trucks who want bass, but also who need to save room for the family and for work, but business, whatever they're doing. So a bunch of Pro 12s or whatever the case for sound quality in a vehicle where it takes up the whole back of the car would be nice, or a Pro 12 in a 4 cubic foot box, it would sound nice. But in today's market, that's not the case. And so I'd say we probably made a shift about 3 years ago. And then ever since then, we've just added that to our line while keeping the original. And down the road, I would like to make like a legacy line of the old high Qs, the old wraps in a small production, try to offer them very cheap just to get them out there, so because a lot of people are asking about the original format. A lot of people have the original enclosures. And then, and I know I'm hitting a lot of things, but in enclosures too, down the road, I would love to offer some of the old band pass enclosures. I get asked very often, and that would be something I'd be interested in as well. But, you only have so many resources. We're trying to capitalize on what we have moving right now so that we can expand and open to all these different venues.
Right. Now, and what I'm about to ask you is definitely not meant to be an insult, but kind of a cool thing, right? as a relaunch happened, you pretty much started with the logo, right? Because it's all new, correct?
The drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of the initial input was information pulled from the old drivers.
Yeah. Okay.
But even then, our basic concept is very general in the beginning, and what we always try to do now. We always try to find a product that offers a quality sound and then bring that product to where it's almost like a demand and supply curve. We try to bring that product to from the quality sound to meet today's demands, and you sacrifice everything's give and take, and so you always try to find that balance of where can you have a woofer to meet the general population's expectation of a subwoofer, while also another part of the general population is expecting a certain sound out of it. And that's a lot of where we came out with the Rap and High Q line. The Ho line and the Show line that's going to be coming out is going to be more of your generic SPL woofer to keep up with that whole aspect. And then, like I said, the SQ line that's going to be coming out is probably going to be a step into the past of high transient response, lighter moving mass, maybe slightly larger enclosures, very loose suspensions, much lower power handling.
So
efficiency out of the driver, but you're not going to be doing anything crazy power wise, where maybe one of those 5-channel amplifiers would be all you need, 500 watts on the sub, on 212s, 112, whatever the case may be. And then you have your mids and highs. So yes, the new stuff is a redesign, but we always try to say old school mentality, new school technology in almost everything that we do. And it's just evolved from there.
So what do you think your percentage of speakers sold go to? Let's call us bass heads, right? What percentage do you think go to the people that would abuse them, which is what we do? That's what we do with them, right? How many of them go to normal people? Where does the bass heads fit in percentage wise, do you think? And I know there's no accurate, you can't.
Yeah, I would have to say that, one reason why we beefed up the High Q series the way that we did is because we found that someone wanted to try to achieve a quality, a close to quality sound with the ability and mechanical capabilities to get it whenever they want to get it. So that would be the High Q, and we sell a lot more High Q than we do Rap. And one of the questions we do is, what is your power handling? What kind of music do you like to listen to? And so I would probably say that majority of our customer base likes to abuse the woofer, because especially like when you get a new car, you start off with the stock system. If it's not good enough, you get something aftermarket. If you start off with a stock car and you get an aftermarket engine, you don't get a big engine just to drive it at rated at speed limits. It's you get these aftermarket systems because it gives you a rush. And so whenever people get it, they push it hard, they smell some smell every once in a while, and then they get themselves in check. And that's what we try to do, is we allow for the flexibility of the intentions of the system. So I would say that again, you're putting that system in your car because you want more bass. And what we try to do is listen to them and recommend, okay, you sound like you might need 3 coils instead of just 2. You can fit a third 8 in there. And so we always try to offer some type of option. So do you want to be carefree, or do you want to put yourself into some type of limit that we think you might hit? Right. So we always try to recommend. So for the most part, people take our advice, and I think that's one reason why we're so successful. I guess is simply because of the communication and transfer of knowledge. Our terminology, like I said, is probably one of the hardest parts about it.
Mm-hmm. I see we got Luke on some comments here. He says, kind of one hand, the actual number of returns you guys have had. So not many returns.
Yeah. So again, we're gonna keep striving for that. We're moving a lot of product. So I I'm very excited about the new lines coming out. Whenever we get into the SPL woofers, Jimmy, the more of the high power, 2000 watts. So I consider SPL woofer more of like the 2000 watt and up per woofer range. So once we get that and people go in there and they start getting on the lanes and they see the person in front of them is 2 dB higher or whatever the case is, I'm not going to lie, even myself, I'll be like, whatever. And I'll crank it for a second and let's see if I can blow a note out of it. So,
Yeah.
I have some questions for y'all. I didn't think y'all were going to be asking me all these questions, but I do have some questions for y'all's knowledge in the game. Because I can tell you right now that y'all have listened to, I'm sure, a far higher number of SPL systems than I have, and we have customers who are getting back into the scene of competition. Some people local here in Louisiana, and like we discussed, some people up there by you, Jimmy. I know, Billy, how many years have you basically been doing the exposing yourself to a high volume of SPL builds and just kind of experience with that?
Well, man, I was 13, 14 when I started building them for myself or building them. And so, but Base Wars has been strong for, roughly 4 years, 4 or 5, but,
and I'm sure the quantity of builds that you've seen in those 4 years is high.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah. And Jimmy, just hearing about your build, I'm sure it sounds like you're very well vested into this, and you have a brand of choice. So you don't get there just by accident. You've made some decisions. So how many years have you been in the SPL, the high SPL game?
I would say basically I've been a base hit my whole life, but truthfully, when I actually got the bug would be in the early 90s, watching, Mama Gates and a lot of the old school people back when they used to come down here in Bartle Hall. That's what I would say actually gave me the bug. And I had to quit for a couple of years because, I took off for my kid. Love her to death, but I wanted to make sure I gave her everything. So my focus was there for her, and I quit, competing or doing a lot of things for a long time. And then once she got back in college again, I kind of got back into it, and I've been competing now, I would say, for the last 4 to 5 years. So, I can honestly say I've been in pretty much some very, very loud builds, things that I probably shouldn't have been in. And it's very ridiculous.
I believe
the amount of time and effort that people put into their stuff.
I believe it.
And you would think have been in, and I have been in a lot, but honestly, most of the time I'm sitting at the table. Man, there's a lot of shows I don't sit in any of them because I'm just busy at the table.
Well, you get to see the general design and see the numbers on it back to back to back. And to me, that's probably one of the most interesting parts of what y'all do to me is being able the vast knowledge of data. And you did a spreadsheet one time that I would love to see what generally people are doing. And it's so trippy because you can have 10 people with the exact same general setup of 415s, but fourth order 415s, very different results, even with the same power. That's why like sometimes it's just you have to get in there, you do all the equations you can, but you can see the people who took the time to break down, rebuild to find that sweet spot. So which brings me kind of my next question is the most efficient design. We get this all the time. Hey, I want to throw some numbers. Generally, people are like, should I do 6th order? Should I do 4th order? Like vintage not even that thing much, or is that even cool these days? So that's what is what's your gut response? Very short because I have more questions.
All right, I'll just say this: depends on the vehicle, depends on the power, and depends on the battery power.
Well,
each vehicle is different.
I'll tell you this: if we're just talking box, I will say 4th order because most people don't get the 6th right.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, Will, and I don't know if you can see this, poor Ryan Perry. I'll just cover up some stuff. But I don't think, you won't be able to see this. But on this is my score sheet. I don't know if you ever looked at one, but I have some things on here you may not know. I have amplifier brand, subwoofer brand, amount of power, number of subs. I don't have how much airspace you have on here, okay? But if I take this data in combination with what the meter gives me, which is the SPL and the frequency, the things that can be calculated from that, that'll be fun. Now, I'm still working on the spreadsheet, what all it will give me. But as far as efficiency and type vehicle, one day I should have an extensive knowledge of the vehicle versus the efficiency versus the frequency versus the power versus the number of subwoofers, which the reason I do that is I want to know for one cone area. I'm big into cone area versus SPL. I think two things make sound: a speaker and a port. And that's why I really don't use power so much. Power helps, but it doesn't make sound. The speaker makes it and the port makes it. And that's why I rate on cone and port area. But one day I'll be able to take this data, which we put in on a spreadsheet on a regular. And once I get all that stuff combined, I should have some pretty good knowledge.
Good deal. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
One thing that I wonder, and I know it takes more time, and I've seen it done at shows, and I see it done different places depending on the organization, is the clamp power check. Because I do see oftentimes I'm pushing this amp. I got it on 15,000 watts. I got it on 8,000 watts, whatever. And I'm just wondering what's the real power check. I am curious if you did 146 and then, or with box rise or something not right. And, or whatever the case is, I'm sure y'all talked about clamp.
Oh yeah.
In the future, or is that too much trouble? Does that extend now the lane time of something that already takes 20 minutes per run?
Absolutely.
Well, so the clamp, there's two things there's several things that I really don't like about it. I like it and that it gives you a number, right? But I am nowhere close to thinking that it's an accurate number. So we know the number is not an accurate number from the term lab anyway, in some calculations with even a fluke meter or whatever. But, and if it's not accurate, then it's not going to give us the data we want, but it will compare one vehicle to the other. If you're using the same meter so it's okay to compete with it, but as far as getting data from it, some of the amplifiers are very, very dirty, and it's hard to get a signal that you can actually clamp.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing I was wondering, because that's one thing I want to do is get a meter with the ability to clamp, but it sounds like you just killed that for me. So
well there's also that most of the time we're one guy sitting at that table, and I don't really want to see a big line. I don't want people to have to wait in a big line. So if I got up to clamp everything, no.
Yeah. It's yeah.
I mean, clamp is fun because a lot of people do like to see what their power is and what they're getting out of their amplifiers. But, I would honestly say from a competitor side, not only a judge sitting behind the thing, it creates so much more time and effort. And then you get to where you're having to run rules and regulations on the clamp power, because you got a guy that has an amplifier that says it'll do 5K, but he's pushing 9K out of that amplifier. So at some point in time, you have to start regulating, and then that's where it becomes rules and restrictions. And that's one thing I can honestly say that I love about Base Wars is we don't have them rules or restrictions. We stop all that right there by not clamping. We don't care. If your amplifier says 9K, it's a 9K amplifier. That's it.
So I guess so you're saying it's up to the user to take advantage of what they have to increase that wattage. So it's a 9K amp, but with the right batteries, with the right supply, that 9K amp is just a factor in the amplifier equation. So So when you say it that way, that's a very interesting concept. Is that you chose that 9K amplifier, not me. So you're the one putting that equipment in the car. You have the battery source, and you have the whatever generator you choose. All that kind of stuff all plays in a factor. So I guess you can't get rid of the guy. Get mad at the guy for just taking advantage of the tools at hand. So, okay, so. So whenever people are doing walls, real quick, side wall versus center ported wall, side ported, center ported. This is a debate I hear all the time.
Driver's side port for me.
Yeah, most vehicles are different, but I've not seen many center ports that pressure that corner like a side port.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it depends on where they're putting the meter to.
So I guess you're saying the port on the opposite side of the mic.
Yeah. It'll pressure that opposite corner just better.
And I see some people do that, but then they open the driver's side door. So wouldn't you think?
I do.
You do? So you wouldn't think that opening that door relieves some of that building pressure?
Believe it or not, I actually gained a dB.5 by opening my door.
What about you sitting in front of that port? Doesn't that not?
I do sit in the driver's seat in front of that port.
So you kill a little bit of yourself with every demo that you give. You're hearing.
Yeah. What'd you say?
Yeah. All right. So, Jimmy, Billy, at what power do you find your return starts to diminish? As in, you see people jump from 2K, 4K, 8K. You start seeing it go from 15K to 30K, and then from 30K to 60K. And sometimes I don't see much of a difference in gain whenever you start talking about these exponential numbers. And maybe it goes back to the power source being able to supply these exponential numbers. So
I'd have to
say this last statement. So
power. If you don't have the correct alternator and battery and wire and everything else electrical to feed that amplifier to give it what it wants, it doesn't matter if you have a 9K amplifier if you're only giving it 5K worth of power.
Okay.
It's only going to do what it's going to do.
I think if I were to pick a number, I'd say 10,000 watts.
Okay.
Just because the reason I say that is I've got people under 10,000 doing 60s easy. And I've got people over 10,000 up to 30 doing a low 60s.
Well, we'll say for mine, for instance, I was a 61-ish with 2 amplifiers, and I added the other 2 amplifiers, and I gained them 2 extra dB. So, I mean, it goes, it's both way. Huh? I went from 2 to 4.
So you doubled the power and gained 2 dB. Okay, that's within range of what you expect to double the power.
Yeah. I mean, so that's kind of a loaded question there, I guess I would say. Is it, efficiency versus what you expect or what you're going to get out of it.
Also, your port, your system itself is designed to move the volume that power dictates. So, real quick again, SPL best practices. One thing that I saw some people do in the lane is they did a run with the entire run playing the same music or source or whatever, and they were cranking it up slow. And I'm thinking, at the time that you're cranking it up slow, you're eating your reserve juice and you're heating your motor, all adding to source inadequacies and then friction in the form of heat for the power. You're losing efficiency. SPL best practices. Jimmy, do you preset everything and do a womp really hard, with everything you got in one swing? Or do you kind of warm up to it?
It depends on what I'm playing. I mean, if I'm doing a burp class, yes, it's all one hit, everything full power. If I'm doing music class, I start out about 3/4 of the power and then roll into the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
you kind of increase the gain to anticipate. I mean, to counter the warming coils, to maintain more of a flat response throughout the entire song.
Yeah, well, that, and I would say back pressure. You're building up that back pressure by slowly rolling into it instead of just completely hammering it.
Understood.
And by that, what they're actually doing is building up that box rise because they wire it at a quarter ohm, which no amp is stable. So they turn it up slow and it builds up that resistance as it gets closer to resonance. And then they can, but because if they go fast, they'll just go
It'll
and
protect. Absolutely.
So they got to turn it slow and build that rise up, build that impedance up.
Okay.
100%.
General mic location. What are some of the biggest mistakes y'all see?
Well,
or is there a mistake because it's system based?
with our organization or others, because with our organization, we give you the mic and let you put it in yourself.
And that's why we do it.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of people that test in the kick and they've never tried in the window or vice versa. So I don't know. I've seen it both ways, truthfully.
Understood. Okay.
We get a lot of new people.
That's a whole discussion there. So I know that's not really an easy question.
A lot of people don't know where to put it because they may be in an org where they've only been able to put it in one spot. So those guys, they rerun 5-6 times because they're trying to figure out where to put it. That is, they've been told they got dots. You look on the windshield, they got dots on the windshield. They don't put it there. They wouldn't know where to put it in a kick. They just don't know. I remember for you, this is so funny. The first time I handed somebody the mic I think I was in Jimmy's area. I handed him the mic and he turned towards his car and he turned back. He says, "What do I do? What do you do with it?" I said, "Put it in your car. Let's see how loud it is." So he turned to his car. He stepped towards his car. He turned around. He's like, "Where did I put it?" I said, "Wherever you want." Anyway, it was just hilarious. But
That's
so
funny.
they don't know. So they just figure it out kind of on the fly for us anyway.
Okay. In the future, SQ runs. I know that you hear some side conversation here and there about, the SQ competitions, things like that. I've been to competitions where they removed the SQ portion. Maybe there weren't enough competitors, whatever the case is. Also, SQ to me is a subjective test, depending on the listener. So I'm curious if that's something that y'all have talked about, and my questions about that, just so we can answer it fast. Or how do you test SQ uniformly, despite experience or skill of the judge?
So you could use an RTA, right? They have Wayne has come out with a sensor for the term lab. There's an RTA function or format, if you will, on the term lab, right? You could use that to use an RTA. But as far as base horizon, the only reason we don't do it, because I love SQ, I'm an SQ guy, always have been. But the only reason we don't do it is because we don't have judges. They're hard to come by. And then also, we're how do you say? We don't make much money, right? You do the grand scheme of math on any show I have, you're like, man, I can't believe this dude does all this for this little bit of money, right? Well, I personally am not the guy that's going to ask you to come judge my show and not pay you. I just ain't going to do it. So, and then you probably know from experience, anytime you have volunteers, well, they show up or they don't. And you can't blame them if they don't, other than the fact that they told you they'd come. But I say that to say, now we're South Florida. We're up north. Jimmy goes, I don't know if it's all the way north of the country or not, but it's up there. And we just don't have that network of judges. I don't have them. If I did have, I've already written a rule book. I've already got a score sheet. I'm ready to go. I just need judges.
Understood. I think that's going to be a curious thing to break into. And then again, where's the demand going to meet the supply of judges? Because, you can't really find a quality judge for one show a year. Once as it builds up, I'm very excited to see where that's going to go. And what about on the other side of the SQ instead of sound is cosmetics? Have y'all thought about a variable of the best build? And that's very tough because you could have someone with 2.8s have the cleanest build against people who are rocking 6.15s or whatever the case is. So it's a very different level. So I'm just curious, because it's, in my opinion, less surface area is easy. It might be easier to make a 2.8 box. The amount of time that it would take to mimic that in a 15 box would just be more surface area, more materials, more time. So what are y'all's thoughts on that?
So I've been trying to think of a class. Actually, I thought about SPL divided by square inches gives me a number, right? When's that kind of thing? I'd be interested in something like that because I really like the fact that like clamping. I would love to have some classes where I could use some power, most efficient. That would be really cool. But I just can't clamp. But so I haven't really thought much about that, but I have been thinking about those numbers and how I could tweak them and come up with some sort of an award for that to reward somebody that can do the most with as little.
I would say a lot of my shows not a lot, but I have a lot of shows up here where I partner along somebody that does a car audio show, and he gives out like awards for the best install of the day. And he sends out 3 or 4 judges, and they just walk around and they will physically look at your entire system, from your wire management to the way the box looks to how clean the install is, just 100% overall. And to me, that I understand what you're saying as far as having a very small system, very easy to clean up. But when it comes right down to it, you can't win the best install if you got an ugly install, regardless if you've got 20 speakers or 2 speakers. It's I guess it's a fine line where I say, sometimes people's feelings get hurt because they think that they have a better install than this guy over here, but he spent 90 hours in just doing wire management when you spent 2.
Yeah, and then also do you have the animosity part of somebody comes in with a 2021 truck where they ran and stapled down the wires and it looks really clean because it's a brand new truck. But then you have somebody who came in with a 1991 rebuilt, really put a lot of effort into it and it looks pretty, but it's hard to compete with a factory layout, So to me, you had somebody, and I'm not knocking, but you just have 2 different classes. Maybe you have a classic and then versus a new fab. I really don't know. Or maybe a stock fab and then a custom. So I'm sure there's easy solutions for this.
Yeah.
All right. And then I guess last thing I have is prizes. I don't know, money, things like, this will obviously be way down the road, but things that whenever someone wins, I mean, like it's crazy, prizes. I don't know. I've heard things back in the day. You got first place, second place, third place. You left with something, and it wasn't a trophy or anything like that. And that's kind of what I was getting at with my credit system I want to build. If you show up and you do what you do, and you're using my product, you're going to leave with a credit towards being able to get you something in your pocket. And I'm not really talking about cash. I'm talking about something that's going to go into the passion. So I just wondering how the market is with that kind of thing. And if y'all think that would be something that would be exciting to add.
I think that would be a really cool thing to do. I have something similar I'm working on for us. And I have an online store right now. It's just got a couple T-shirts and decals and stuff like that. But so my idea with that is like when you win, if you place or whatever at the baseball show, you get a certain number of points. So once I can track it, those points would be able to let you go on the store and spend your points on some baseball garb. And that's similar. It's similar to what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, mine would be limited to if you're using my product. I was
Right,
kind of thinking, like, if you have my subs, if you win first place with and you're just using my subs, you get so many points. If you're also using the mids, you get additional points. So the more you rock, the more we take care of you, and so that way. We don't supply you a whole system for you to not go into any shows. You earn it. The way I think it should be. Nobody. Y'all aren't buying my product because I asked nicely or because you have to. We work very hard and spend a lot of time earning, and I think that's the way, unfortunately, life is. So I think I want to reward the people who are out there hustling already, and see if that's something. And it's never as easy as it's said, but I think that's the route to go. Unless y'all think
it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea.
Jeremy Mott reminded me of your subs about a year ago when I was over sitting at his house. He's got some of your guys' old school subs sitting there on the floor, and I was like, "Wow, I haven't seen these in years." And he's like, "Yep, they're still in perfect working order." And I'm like, "Damn." But I mean, it's amazing to see a product, start way back when and still be ready, available today. And it goes to show your guys' passion and love for the whole sport, and what
Yeah,
you guys offer as a company in whole, I guess I want to say.
yeah. And like I said, and I'm as much as I'm a fight for my brand, in the end, the competitors, Sundown, the Death Bounce, or all these different ones. It's at the end, if you find a product that you like and they're supporting you, to me, just being able to have that is very important. And I support you. I support all of them. At the end of the day, as long as there's other quality product out there, that means there's competition, and we're going to work harder to try to beat that. But at the end of the day, it brings us all together. Still, we all came to the shows, and I just want to get it back and get it going. I want to get it very exciting and get people involved and make it a family thing, because I think it's a good educational, and really it's a chance to create something where you get immediate gratification. You build something, put that woofer in there, and you turn it on and you see it happen. And that's probably one of the most satisfying feelings, especially if it's something you built. And so I think that needs to be spread.
Absolutely.
Right. So let me tell you about this right quick, Will, and then we'll head out for the evening. But so on this score sheet, which I know you can't read it, that's light, lag, and bad.
I did read it this weekend though.
So I have, where you have amplifier brand, subwoofer brand, all that stuff. My idea with that is, like, at the end of the year, once I have a good database, which I'm working hard on, I promise. But once I have this all done, like, the competitor will fill out what team he's on, and he'll fill out what brands he has. So every time he gets points, Savard gets points, let's say, right? And so at the end of the year, what brand's got the most points? This could definitely help you with what you're doing. I don't know if other orgs are tracking it like this, right? But yeah. So this right here would let you know for sure who's doing and where and what.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've thought about that is how to track it, how to keep it honest and confirmed,
Right.
So I think that's going to be interesting to see in general.
Yeah.
And I just request double points.
Right.
Absolutely.
Heard that. Well, all right. Well, y'all, look, it's about 8:20. I know it goes by fast, but I'm hungry.
Absolutely.
Will, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. This was a good talk.
Yeah, Billy and Jimmy, it was nice meeting you virtually, and man, I look forward to seeing you in person sometime and checking out your bill, and we'll go from there.
I come down to Louisiana every year at Scraping the Coast. I've been down there for the last 3 years.
We did this past year, but man, it gets hot. It is nasty. That's great.
3 years ago was my first year down there, and I understand what hot truthfully is. That's all I was going to say.
Anybody who goes to that show has commitment. I always wonder, why don't they push it back 2 or 3 months, get it in the fall? I don't know. Maybe the venue's booked up or something, but they need more shows in the fall and in the spring. For some reason, bass is really popular when it's the hottest outside. And
why? It's so weird.
In the south, I don't know how it is in the north. I know it's a drier air in the north or something, but
it's still hot here, but we don't have the humidity. But
yeah,
still.
Right.
And Scraping is on the coast. You got that humidity there. So, all right, guys. Well, look, I appreciate y'all, and everybody have a good night.
Yeah, thanks. Come back anytime you like, man.
Yes, sir.
All right. See you. All right. Well, y'all.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I would just say thank you to everybody that's watching us tonight. We appreciate the love and support.
Indeed. Yeah, you know what, real quick, like I'd like to say too, thanks to everybody for sold a lot of t-shirts this weekend. So appreciate that. And sold plenty of decals, right? How many did you sell, Jimmy? I bet I sold more than you did.
I bet you sold more shirts than I did too. Yeah, absolutely. I bet you if I had them shirts, I would blow you away.
Right.
But my wife sold 5 beanies this weekend. How many did you sell?
I didn't sell any beanies, man. We were sweating, right? We were sweating, even though it's whatever month this is. But anyway, so I'd like to say thanks to everybody for supporting me over this past weekend, buying that stuff. That makes a difference. That pays for gas sometimes, and sometimes it buys me food too. But I'll pull up right quick. I want to see where I'm at this weekend. Everybody probably knows better than me, but all right. So October the 24th, yeah, this weekend in Biloxi. So those of you that are down south would be in Biloxi on the 24th, and Shreveport the next day on the 25th at a car show, fast cars and food trucks. That's
I would
fun.
just like to say real quick, no, we're not done having shows up here. I haven't booked anymore. I know. I apologize. It's been crazy because of everything going on, but look forward to the next month or two, us having a couple more shows for sure.
That's cool. And we never stop down here. I think I'm booked through next year.
Well,
I don't think I have a weekend off.
We get snow and it gets cold up here. It's different for us.
Hey, do y'all have sound systems on snowmobiles? That might be a thing.
No.
Maybe hit somebody up and do that.
Possibly. Talk to Dan.
All right.
With that.
We're going to eat. So we'll see you guys later, and thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Have a great night. Thank you, guys.